In Exodus chapter 13, the people of God are leaving Egypt behind. At this time, God is putting the Feast of Unleavened Bread in place. It'll be an annual time of remembrance for the Israelites. Here's what we read in Exodus chapter 13, verse 3. And Moses said to the people, "Remember this day in which you went out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten." In this verse, Moses is declaring that this feast will involve the remembrance of three things. Remembrance number 1, leaving the bondage of Egypt. Moses says, "Remember this day in which you went out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." So God's people are to remember what they came out of, not to long for it, but to be repulsed by the bondage involved. We too, who have come to faith in Christ, need to remember where we came from, and that can help us remain thankful to God, and it can also motivate us to steer clear of things that may entrap us. Remembrance number 2, the power of God to deliver. Moses says, "For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out of this place." God poured out 10 plagues on Pharaoh and on the Egyptians. The power he demonstrated was off the charts. Similarly, we who are believers in Christ are to remember the power that God displayed in our lives when he delivered us from the bondage of sin as we came to faith in Christ. In addition, we're to remember that when we're in an oppressive situation, God is able to deliver us, just like he delivered us when we first believed. And then remembrance number 3, the urgency to depart. Moses says, "No leavened bread shall be eaten." God's people had to leave Egypt urgently, so quickly that they didn't have time to adequately prepare food. Specifically, they took dough before it was leavened, leaven being yeast. Thus, when they baked it, it did not rise. The Israelites are being instructed to remember that sense of urgency, and they're to refrain from using leaven, using yeast, for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which provides a clear picture of the need to steer clear of sin, leaven, in their lives, for leaven is commonly equated with sin. Like the Israelites, we believers in Christ need to remember to urgently leave any sins of the flesh behind and to walk in purity, no sin, no leaven in our lives. So in summary, we need to be people who remember the bondage we left behind, the power of God that delivered us out of bondage, and the need to follow Christ with urgency, saying no to leaven, no to sin in our lives. Thanks for listening.